Okay. So this is the Velero community meeting for June 27th, the US Europe friendly time zone. So let's just dig into status. On my side, mostly just was doing PR reviews, but I also did get started again on my backup item action, restore item action, end-to-end test for the V2 API. I hope to get that wrapped up this week.
Awesome.
Okay. And Raghu?
You want to complete the status portion first, like Shubham thinks they have.
Oh, I see. That was a discussion topic. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, you had that under the status in the meeting there. But yeah, if you move that to the discussion topic, I guess we got Shubham as well. Status.
Yeah, I've been working primarily on PR reviews. We had some PRs for the plugin side, and some of them were for the data mover backup and restore. And that's it.
Nanshul.
Yeah, so a couple of things. First is, I've been requesting, I think for last 3 meetings, just requesting for review on this PR in the CSI plugin. This is part of the upcoming milestone. And I'm currently also working on the JSON substitutions work. So, if we could kind of expedite the review for this PR, I could focus myself fully on the other work. Because if the review comes later for both PRs, it will be slightly harder for me to manage. So yeah, just a request again in the community to review this particular PR. And yeah, otherwise in terms of status update, the JSON substitution work is also ongoing. I plan to raise that by end of next week, probably, yeah.
Okay, great. And I'll make sure to have a look at that PR later today as well. I guess we'll move on to the discussion topics. Rega, you had one for PV block support.
Yeah, this is more of a question because off late we started some testing of this, and especially in the context of KubeVirt, right? Most of the PVs will be presented as block type PVs to the pod. So we tested a little bit with Velero. I don't think the file system backup is supported for this, right? That's how it looks like as of now, at least.
I've never tried it myself. I think I suspect that what you're saying is true. I haven't actually tried it, but yeah, I imagine that at least the restic side, that's probably not going to work, or Copia. But it's not actually I've tried either that side or on the snapshot side.
Right, the snapshotting I think works, but not FSB. But going forward, is this considered for the 1.12 task of data movement of snapshots or no?
So and Shubham, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong on that. I think the focus basically now is anything that currently works with the CSI plugin. I believe that's kind of the limitation of the scope. So if it's supported with the CSI plugin alone in 1.11, the expectation is we should support that with data mover in 1.12. Shubham, is that correct?
Yes, if it is working with via the CSI interface, it should work for data mover as well.
So anything that's not CSI based that doesn't support CSI snapshots is not going to be supported in the 1.12 data movement.
Not via the built-in data mover. If you have your own data mover for implementation for it, you should be able to use the interface to latch onto Velero.
Right, got it. So I think because the snapshot seems to work, so I'm guessing that it would be possible to do the data movement, backup in 1.12. Probably not now.
It's worth noting if it's something you wanted to test out.
Right.
As of last week, it was announced that all of the code needed on the backup side for the data movement for 1.12 is merged on main. So you should be able to do a data mover backup on the main branch, but not a restore yet.
Yeah. No, we'll test. And I bring this up because in the KubeVirt world, this is the most prevalent type, right? All the PVs are presented as block type PVs, and we added support in Crowdcaster, so I just wanted to test in Velero as well. Yeah, we'll do more testing.
Sure, great.
So basically, This is the
Was like-
PV mode equal to block volume, right? That's what you're talking about.
Right, the PV shows up as a device inside the
Yeah.
pod, not as a
Mhm.
mount point.
I think there
Right.
was some issue open on it. I'll try to get it for you if I find one.
Okay, sure. I mean, even if you do the data movement, right, with CoPM and similar to what we are doing, similar thing in Cloud Casa, there is
Mhm.
always a bit of a downside in the sense that CoPM will have to read the entire device, right, at least initially or even every time to find the blocks. So obviously it's not super efficient,
Yeah,
but
exactly. So
right.
that's why if you have a block CSI driver, right, storage CSI driver for block storage, that would work, because then you don't have to actually do the provisioning dynamically. It will be on the driver.
No, backup is still going to be the same inefficiency, right? The Copia or Restic has to scan entire PV, entire
Yeah,
device.
that's there. I'm talking about whether FS copy will work on it or not directly.
Oh, FS. Oh, okay. No, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, understood.
Yeah.
Understood. I think the real benefit would come when, whatever the Kubernetes work group has been discussing for a very long time, the CBT support
Yeah.
for the,
Right.
and I haven't participated in the last few calls, so I don't really know where things stand, but they really have been talking for more than a year at this point.
Yeah,
I mean,
the cap is like more than a year old. So
more than a year. Do any of you guys join those calls, the work group, storage work group calls?
I'm on the Slack, so mostly take part in the discussions sometimes. Yeah.
Understood. Okay, thank you. And just one quick point about 1.11.1. I saw a note, I think, from somebody saying it's delayed because of the Go issue. I think this probably would have been discussed in the last Tuesday's call, I'm guessing, right? The release date of 1.11.1.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I'm looking back on the status here from last week. I don't see it mentioned there.
I think this came up this week or like after the Velero call.
Oh, after the call, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, okay. I mean, it does have some important fix of status missing from the backup. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, that's it for me. Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Were there any other discussion topics that anyone wanted to bring up?
I'm just curious if anyone on the call has attempted backup with the built-in data mover.
I have not yet. That's something I to get to soon, but yeah, haven't tried it yet.
Yeah, I'd like to try it myself too, but haven't been able to.
It should work actually, because I think they're on to the restore changes pretty much done. So
Yeah. That was the status updated last week. That was announced that everything needed for the backup side has been merged to main, and what's remaining is the restore side work.
So
Yeah.
do we have an entry point documentation to test it out right now? I mean, if I want to test it out, where should I kind of look in the current state?
design doc should be good, I think, as a starter.
Okay. I mean, do we have the Helm chart available with the? I mean, I don't know what other components were added, but do we have the updated Helm chart to test it out? Or?
That's a good question. I haven't really been following the Helm chart side as regularly because I don't really use it myself. So I don't know if the Helm chart is up to date with what's on main right now or not. Shubham, do you know?
I'll have to see the template ones.
Yeah, maybe if you folks want, I mean, we can definitely test it out, but maybe just a quick go like into on how to get started, right? Would be great. Just a pointer to where to look. Thanks.
Yeah, definitely, Anshul. Good idea.
Yeah, and I think we can also start doing this on our end, Cloud Casa side as well, to start testing these pieces.
Yeah, that'd be great. Just the more people that have run through this as we're going through this process, the more bugs we'll find before release. Which will, obviously improve the quality of 1.12 when it comes out.
Yeah, and we'd done a similar implementation on top of Velero as well. So we probably have a list of bugs that we hit. So we'll see if we can reproduce those based on past experience.
Okay. Were there any other topics that anyone wanted to discuss?
Just a quick addition to what Satya said, right?
Yep.
So I haven't again gone through the clear in detail about the review of that, how the data movement is being done, but my guess is the snapshot obviously is going to be restored, right? And then we copy, you do the copy from the snapshot. Is that how it works?
Yeah, basically we the CSI plugin creates the CSI snapshot, the volume snapshot content. Then we create a backup pod in the Velero namespace that mount and it creates a new PVC that uses that CSI the volume snapshot. Actually, a cloned volume snapshot is the data source. So we create a new PVC based on that snapshot, and then we use Copia to copy that into the backup storage location. That's the way the data movement is kind of very high level the way it works.
Right. So yeah, that is how roughly how we work as well. And you typically run into some issues when you try to create that PVC from the snapshot. In some cases, for example, if you take the Longhorn case, right? When you mount or create the PVC from Longhorn snapshot, in some cases, or probably in all cases actually, it copies the data, it restores. They don't have, or at least as of now, they haven't implemented a very efficient creation of a volume from snapshot. So you end up, Longhorn behind the scenes is going to create volume by copying the data, and that will take some time. So you might have to introduce some timeouts that are configurable for users because the PVC may not be available in time for you. Is there any timeout in the current code, or how long do you wait, or is it indefinite?
I'm actually off the top of my head. I don't remember what. I haven't looked at that one. Maybe Shubham, you know that one.
Yeah. So there are timeouts. Basically, I get your point, Raghu. Like the snapshot doesn't get ready sometimes, right?
Right.
So basically,
No, not the snapshot. Not the snapshot. It's the PVC from the snapshot. Yeah.
Yeah, the PVC from the snapshot as a data source.
Right.
So it depends on the vendor, right? The storage vendor, how it is implemented first of all.
That is correct.
Yeah. So let's say if you're using CFFS or RBD and you use shallow copy option and stuff like that, which are proprietary things. So that doesn't take much time. There's only switch pointers or something. So in that case, so I agree that there needs to be a configurable value, and they are trying to use the resource timeout in some places, and in backup v2 API, we introduced 2 timeouts. One was sync frequency timeout, and what was the other one, Scott? Do you remember? Item operations timeout. Sorry.
Yeah, that's right.
So basically, it's a combination of 2-3 configurable parameters in different places.
Yeah, the item operations timeout is once you've created that PVC, that's actually, I guess it's for any of the item operations. But when you create the PVC, then there's the part where we copy that PVC data, that clone PVC into the S3 or in the backup storage location. So that's another operation that can take some time, and that's a configurable timeout because for a huge volume that might take a long time, obviously, especially copying off cluster.
But do you call that a timeout? I mean, you may never be able to set to a pre-configurable time there, right? Depends on the size.
Well, I mean, it might be in 1 hour or 3 hours. I mean, we have a timeout set so that well, what we don't want is a situation where an operation is truly stalled, and 24 hours later the backup still shows in progress.
Right.
It's kind of like with Restic and Copia now. We have a Restic file system upload timeout that's by default set, I think, to either 1 hour or 4 hours. I think it's 4 hours. And if you have very large volumes, you may need to increase that. But the intent there is you don't want a situation where where an operation is truly stalled, it's never going to finish, and then Velero doesn't have any timeout, so it just says it's in progress forever.
I agree, but even with the current 4-hour timeout, I always felt that the right solution is not to have the timeout for the complete operation, but the timeout should always be if there is no progress for X amount of time about the job or cancel the job, right? As long as there is progress, user should be able to cancel if they want.
The problem, especially with the plugin operations portion, where you may, depending on the plugin and depending on what your API is for these operations, you may not necessarily have any reliable information for things being progressing. Because Shiban, with Volsync, we didn't have that, did we?
Yeah. So it depends on the internal implementation of the entity we are depending on, right? The progress.
No, but with the Copia backup, with restrict backup, we can easily track the amount transferred, amount read, and things like that, right?
Yeah, totally. But as
but,
I said,
but with some implementations, because this is a pluggable system. So, for example, OADP 1.2, we have our own data mover that's based on the backup item action v2, where we're using Volsync behind the scenes. And in that case, we don't really have a lot of insight when an upload is in progress as to, okay, it's 30% done, it's 40% done. This many bytes have been copied. So it's hard to sort of show between update cycles whether we truly made progress or not.
Right. I'm sorry for asking a lot of questions because I should really go through some of these design proposals before asking. But isn't the new plugin, the V2 version, is supposed to make this progress update easier?
Well, the plugin has a progress reporting mechanism, but that also depends on it means when you write a plugin, you write a progress method, and you're saying, and that plugin knows how to, but for example, if the plugin's way of determining progress is to look up some CR that's monitoring this progress and being controlled by some other controller, or being that controller may not update progress in a timely manner. So the Velero plugin may not have minute-by-minute insight that, oh, we're still making progress. In other words, it might flip the status from queued to uploading, and then 20 minutes later, it still says uploading. So from Valero's point of view, we don't know that there has been progress made, but the file system may be copying. So what I'm saying is that because it's a pluggable system, ideally, you'd want to be able to have progress reporting in a timely manner back at every stage in the workflow. The reality is, depending on what external tools you're using, what external packages you're plugging in here, you may be working with something that doesn't give that kind of timely update. So a timeout based on, oh, we haven't seen any updates in 20 minutes. We're going to call this stalled, but it may just be uploading a 2 terabyte file system, and it's not giving you minute-by-minute progress.
Yeah, right. One compromise there could be, Scott, just to make it an idle progress timeout, right? So we have a couple other backup products that do that. So it will only time out if it's idle. So if there are other pieces of plugins that don't offer, progress information, I mean, those are the only ones it will time out on. It won't punish the good plugins.
Problem there, though, is if the longest part of your upload is, your longest running plugin is one of these, like in the OADP case with Volsync, where all of our waiting time is waiting on Volsync uploads for a backup, which means you might have one volume that's much larger than the rest, which means the bulk of that, say 1 hour that you're waiting, is going to be for that one plugin on that one file system. And you might not get any updates for an hour. So if you say we're going to time out for being idle, but the underlying controller that's uploading is still actually uploading, it's just not telling you what it's doing, then you might prematurely time out. So that's where.
But we do time out at 4 hours anyway today, right? So the thought is really to say, let the timeout logic kick in only if there is no progress, because that's the back to the.
Oh, I see what you're saying. In other words, keep the 4 hours or whatever as it is, but reset that 4 hours every time there's progress, as opposed to.
Exactly.
That's something to consider. I mean, this would be, I would say at this point, possibly more relevant. I guess equally relevant to the Breastic Copia backup file system versus mover, but now it's just based on time since the beginning of the backup, and it might make sense. I mean, this may be something as a design proposal to say, hey, it might make more sense to treat it as a timeout with, instead of maximum time for the whole backup, you're thinking in terms of maximum time with no
Idle
updates at
timeout.
all.
Yeah, exactly. That's what.
Yeah, that does make sense. I don't know if that would be something that might make sense as a configurable option where you could use one or the other. It still might make sense to have this kind of overall, hey, if this backup is taking more than 24 hours, stop. You report an error, we need to fix something. But maybe if you have both idle timeout and total timeout, you could have one of them optional. I don't know. But I mean, I think this is something that might make sense as a design kind of RFE type proposal, just to say, because again, there might be implications both on the plugin side or on the Velero Restic Copia side as a kind of change in the way we would approach that.
Yeah. I mean, it's easier said than done, definitely. Yeah, go ahead, Satya. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I think when we did a similar implementation, I think I vaguely remember, again, this is off the top of my head, not looking through issues and stuff. I think most of our changes or deviation from the original implementation centered around supporting EBS, supporting Longhorn, and supporting block PVs. So we'll look at those volume types to see if we can find anything that may or may not work, and we'll share it back with you.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, in the context of, there's one more thing that I remembered about the creation of the PV from snapshot as a source. We got a request from the customer in this regard. So these are temporary volumes, right? We are going to remove them as soon as copy is done, backup is done. So Longhorn by default, if you create this PVC, right, it gives you like 2 replicas, 3 replicas, whatever, and which really doesn't make sense. So we implemented the storage class mapping for this phase, where users can provide, like Velero supports storage class mapping in restore, right?
Right.
So I don't know if this new path, data movement path, supports storage class mapping for these PVs.
I don't believe that for the temporary PVs, we currently support storage class mapping. I think we only use that on the restore side still.
Right. So,
the temporary PVs are carrying the same spec as application PVs that you use for backup.
Right. So, and that is what we thought too. So we didn't do anything, but we got a request saying there's no point in Longhorn using 2 replicas for this temporary PV. So can you do the mapping? So we implemented that, and the customer is creating another storage class for Longhorn where they explicitly set the number of replicas to 1, and we use that for the temporary volume. So some of these things, we'll probably submit all these.
Basically, it improved the operation time, right?
Yeah. This map only applies to the temporary PVs.
Yeah, and that, again, I think that also does make sense as an option, similar to the restore storage class mapping that would, for data movement. Yeah. Basically, as an optional thing that if you set this, like you said, a way of improving performance for these temporary PVs that you don't expect them to, be around any longer than the backup, and so there might be different requirements there. Which
I've seen this with Portworx PVs as well. So yeah, I know where this is coming from. Like for the first jump, right, we should be able to configure that.
Right. Yeah, we will submit probably a request for the.
I think that's another case where we're submitting an RFE and design kind of proposal would make some sense, because I would agree. I think at this point in the timeline for 1.12, it's probably not something we would get into 1.12.0, but this is something that would make sense as an enhancement, kind of going forward.
Understood. And one final question, going back to block, this is in the context of OADP. I know the Red Hat OpenShift virtualization, right? So do you test OADP with OpenShift virtualization actively, or how does that work?
Yes, we have test cases for that alongside usage of Velero plugin for KubeVirt. So the test matrix is there in place.
Is there? Okay. So
and Shubham, there, do you support the data movement or just snapshots there as well?
We support the data movement.
Okay.
Even for block PVs?
No, it depends on the storage class. So currently
Okay.
we have CSI. If the CSI driver supports it, then we support it. That's the tagline.
Right. Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Okay. Were there any other topics or any follow on from previous topics that we wanted to cover now? I think we're good to end the meeting then. Thanks to everybody for participating. Oh, sorry, was there something else?
Hi, this is Mohit. I actually have joined this meeting for the first time. So I just have a pull request there, and I was hoping to get it reviewed and get some attention on that. Is it the right forum to do that, or?
Yeah, and if you want, I think the best way is to get the visibility there. If you go to the HackMD for this meeting and add it to the status, that way we can, going back to look at that, we can link straight to it. Or in the meantime, if you just want to put it in the chat now, I can open it up so I can look at it later.
Yes, I can do that. I'll just put it in the chat. In fact, I think Shubham already reviewed it once, gave a few comments, and I have addressed those.
This is
But
the AWS tags one. I can take another look.
yes, it's the same. And
Sure.
I'll just put it in the chat as well, just for.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I actually asked one of our Cloudcaster team members to review this as well as. So I'll check that again, Mohit. Yeah.
Okay, that would be great. Yeah, thank you.
Scott, by the way, I see Tiger's entry also here for status. I don't know, did we already talk about that?
Sorry, that was added. Yeah, Tiger. Go ahead and introduce. Yeah, that'd be great.
Hello. Were you calling me?
Yeah, you. Oh, I'm sorry. This way. Yeah, you had a status update. I think it was added after we got onto discussion topics. So if you want to just
Yeah, just
review request.
Yeah, I'm just requesting for review APR in the GCP plugin repo. And this PR essentially remove the code that was causing issues when you were using a secret that's not meant for service accounts, such as an external account for GCP, which is used for with credentials. And this is to use with credentials on GCP cluster that is not a GKE cluster, such as OpenShift on GCP. So yeah, just requesting for review.
Okay.
Yeah. And if you guys have any questions, you can leave a comment. Yeah, that's it for me.
Okay, sounds good. Any other status updates or discussion topics to address today? Okay, well, thanks everybody again for joining. I guess we'll end the meeting now. And as always, ping us in Slack if anything else, press reviews or anything else comes up.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.